Good morning and afternoon as everybody checks in. We've got our fantastic digital marketing SimpleView team here. I just wanted to go over some of the logistics. I'm Nicole with the marketing team. We are recording this webinar. You will get a copy of it this afternoon. It'll also be available in the SimpleView resources on our homepage, as well as your portal tomorrow. The first two will be available today. The portal will be available tomorrow. If you have any questions or concerns, you'll use your chat box throughout the presentation. After the presentation, you can always contact marketing@simpleviewinc.com with any additional questions. I'd be more than happy to get you where you need to go. For right now, I'm going to pass it over to Jason and our amazing group of presenters today. Enjoy the webinar.
Great. Thanks, Nicole. Really appreciate that introduction.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
You know, we prepped so much for this, and this was Jason's biggest fear.
Yes, absolutely, right?
There we
go.
Okay,
pretty
we can hear you now,
excited.
Jason.
Yeah. What's that now?
You were cutting out pretty bad for a minute there.
Okay, so I'm back on, right?
You're back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Beautiful. So this is the beauty of working at home. So welcome into our homes today. Again, we're trying this remotely, which is a little bit different for all of us, and trying to get this out there. But this is good content. We wanted to make sure I got some of the team members on to share of digital marketing at SimpleView, and I'm going to be moderating this webinar today. And as the VP of Digital Marketing, I work with a team of over 40 marketing professionals to help all of you out there drive more traffic and hopefully more arrivals into your destinations. My duties include strategic leadership and operational management of the digital marketing services for our clients. But really, the most important thing today is hearing from a lot of our experts. Now, many of you may know me already as the host of SimpleView's weekly digital marketing web series, The Layover Live, which brings actionable digital marketing news and insights to hundreds of DMOs like you each and every week. So welcome today, excited to get this going. So let's get underway. So moving forward, right, we are definitely in some uncertain times, and I think that goes without saying, and some of you probably are sick of hearing some of this from brands nowadays, but it's still worth mentioning. Things seem to be changing on a daily basis, sometimes even hourly, it seems like, which is crazy. Working from home and social distancing are quickly becoming the new normal for everybody now, resulting in less traffic on the street, less traffic in the skies, and fortunately and sadly, less traffic to our local businesses. And all of this has affected all of us and has and will have an effect on marketing as well, not just for travel and tourism, but really for all industries, which is why we're here today. One thing is for certain, though, is that we will get through this, right? One thing about this industry that is so attractive to me and many others is we all work together, which is fantastic. We will get through it. We've touched on some of the things in this webinar last week with Katie and I on the Layover Live, where we talked some of the digital marketing continuity, but I want to bring in now some of our subject matter experts to talk to you and get this thing underway today. So without further ado, my teammates, let me introduce you to everybody. So first is Paul McLeod. Paul is our Director of Business Intelligence. He joined SimpleView in 2011. Paul oversees all of our SEO and destination dashboards teams, and they frequently analyze traffic patterns and regularly provide user insights and recommendations for hundreds of DMOs each and every month. So Paul, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Next is Sandy Jordan. Sandy is our Director of Content Marketing. She's been with us for quite a while as well, since 2012. Sandy manages the content creation, marketing automation, and social media teams, helping DMOs connect travelers through creative storytelling, user-generated content, email marketing, and Sandy, it seems like a dozen other things. So welcome to you this morning.
Thank you.
Yes. And then behind the scenes, right, but just as important, our friend Samantha Keithley. So Sammy, welcome.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, so Sam's here. She should be helping out with a lot of our questions later on. Sam is our lead digital media analyst. She works with our paid media and runs our paid media team, which handles everything from pay-per-click advertising to paid social, programmatic, remarketing, YouTube video. And Sam, I'd be here for an hour if I mention all the things that you work on each and every day. So welcome. So as we work into this, I want to give everybody a quick agenda about what we're going to be talking about today. This is all relevant to everyone. We also have some supporting blog posts that have been sent out recently as well, so take a look at those on SimpleView's website. But first and foremost, we want to talk with Paul McLeod a little bit about some things we should be doing from an SEO, CRO, and web standpoint. Often questions that we're getting right now is, with traffic down across the board, should we be continuing with our SEO and content efforts? The short answer is yes, but we'll get into that a little bit more in detail. Want to also talk about paid media. Does it make sense to keep some of it going if people aren't purchasing travel right now? So I want to talk a little bit about that and get into that a little bit. Then I want to kick things over to Sandy. And Sandy, on your side, talk about email and social, and talk about some projects that DMOs can be working on right now, or that we can help them work on right now. So there's a lot to talk about there, which is very exciting. So getting into that, the main thing is that as we're looking at these things, right, I kind of see it as a two-phased approach, and there's been a ton of articles out there, really good articles too, that I've seen on FocusWire and other places talking about how things are, right? The first part is creating content and really thinking about what we're doing now, right? Being that valuable, relevant resource for our constituents, for our local businesses, and a lot of you are doing a great job with that already. But then we also need to think about the future and prepping for the next phase, which is what do things look like this. So really, as we start to get into this, I think SEO and CRO and web are important now more so than ever. So preparing for the future really means that we can't forget about today. So Paul, let's jump in with you really quick here and get your overall thoughts on SEO continuity, and let's kick things off there.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. As you mentioned, traffic is down for everybody, which is not too surprising. It was something like half last in terms of overall sessions to DMO sites. That being said, speaking of organic traffic, if you had a huge paid traffic and you turn that off, then your traffic is going to be, your overall session number is going to be down worse than that. But in terms of organic traffic, around half of it is still there. So it's not like nobody is coming to sites. And that was and is the biggest channel of traffic to DMO sites. Somewhere to get confusing, keeping saying half again, something around half of traffic in normal times does come from organic search. So it's always been the biggest channel, and it's really important to make sure you're set up well for it. My thought is, obviously, if there's a true crisis and people are losing their jobs, all bets are off. But SEO should be considered, I think, an important bit of ongoing maintenance. The analogy I came up with is that your paid services, for whatever channel they may be, paid traffic is sort of like the gas that makes your boat go. So if you're not using the boat, it kind of makes sense to buying a whole bunch of gas. But SEO to me is a little bit more like the ongoing maintenance that you need to be doing all the time with a boat. So I don't actually own a boat and never have, but obviously a pain in the butt. If you do take a boat out without having done your maintenance on it to make sure that everything's sealed and the pumps work, the batteries charged and all that stuff, it's not going to, if all of a sudden you're like, okay, let's take a boat trip. We would absolutely recommend, keeping up to date with ongoing maintenance, that kind of stuff for your site during this time, because it's going to come when SEO or when travel is a thing that people want to do. They'll probably want to do it really badly in 1 to 25 months, whenever this ends. So we want to make sure that we're in position to pull those people in at time.
Yeah, good stuff there, Paul. I think, it's, it takes, SEO is really a long game. It takes time to get up in the search rankings. As you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint, which is something that we always say. So I think continuing that makes a lot of sense. So let's even jump into some of those pieces right now, because there's plenty to always be doing in regards to improving sites for organic search. Let's talk about one that's at the top of the list, Paul, right? And that's conducting a basic health check. That's a good thing to be working on right now, right?
Yeah, again, this is something you probably want to be doing all the time. It's certainly a big part of our SEO service for our clients. But now, if you do, I think people have been, sort of running around with their hair on fire for when all the shutdowns first started to happen. But I don't know. For us, it seems to have calmed down a little bit. And if that's the case for you, now is a good time to do some of that basic SEO health check auditing stuff that you might not do otherwise. People like to use automated tools for SEO health checkups and so forth, and those are great as a first pass way to do it. But to properly assess what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities are for your content strategy and your SEO strategy, to properly do that takes significant time, and then turning those into a plan of action also takes time. So, if you have some of your day-to-day responsibilities lessened by the fact that, big conferences aren't going on and things like that right now, now is a great time to be checking your analytics, looking for pages that were suffering, especially before all this happened. It might be a good idea if you're checking your analytics to go back to February and before, just so you're looking at normal time stats. If you're looking at March's statistics on your content, a very good chance that they're going to give you a skewed idea of sort of the important things to look at for when people are allowed to travel. So, doing that, working on a content calendar for the future. Sandy can talk about that kind of thing in a minute. But also, making sure that all your meta tags are optimized and so forth. Doing fresh keyword research if you haven't done it in a while, to make sure that you know the newest stuff. Although again, watch out for the effect of March on those numbers. Google Trends can be useful if you want to sort of see how things have changed recently, as opposed to Keyword Planner, which does show some over time information. But yeah, those are all really great things. Just your basic SEO stuff, but getting in there and making sure that you're doing sort of a spring cleaning version of it is a good thing for this time, I think.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, Paul. And again, with organic traffic, for as long as I can remember, making up the vast majority of traffic to a DMO's website, although it's down, it's still the top resource for traffic. So, making sure we're not forgetting that is important. And really content fuels all of that, right? So, really as we look into this, the next question I got, and really probably for you and Sandy to be able to answer is, with content fueling the fire for SEO, what are some things that clients out there can be doing in regards to content right now?
Sandy, I'll let you say that one if you want.
Yeah, oh, sure, definitely. Yeah, we're going to go through quite a few examples. I think high level obviously is, coronavirus news and information in your area. The public health authorities are obviously going to be the primary source of that information, but the DMO can serve definitely as a community resource to highlight that information and then feature the impact on hospitality business. So blog posts, social media posts, those kinds of things can help you to spread that message and then show how it's affecting your community specifically. Of course, getting things like updated event and restaurant information. We're going to look at some more examples of that, some specific examples of that later in the presentation. But making sure that you are updating that information consistently. There are things like virtual tours. That's a great way to handle a lot of the content that is being moved from one place to the other. So if we are no longer allowed to go to museums and zoos, well, all of that stuff can be featured online as well. So that's definitely a great resource there. Highlighting attractions and activities that don't require close contact. We're all practicing social distancing. So we want to make sure that we're highlighting safe activities, but getting as expansive as we can with the number of opportunities that we're featuring.
Yeah, good stuff there. So Sandy, thanks for sharing that. And I think also, looking at this, telling positive impact stories in the nation, I think is also good, guys. I know Katie and I referenced this last week, but, Experience Columbus is doing a really, really good job on this. Showcasing everything on like one landing page or various landing pages, including their roundup of how people can support the community. Those are good, positive stories right now. Also doing great work and relevant, valuable content from their working from home. So they're providing not only, resource for that, but talking about, ways that people can better from home. Those are some, positive impact stories that are good as well. And the more and more we can be doing that, the better off we're going to be, and we're going to continue to be that valuable resource. I think one thing I want to make mention of too, while we're talking about this, is not forgetting about overall user experience. Paul mentioned it, and it, goes without saying that, traffic is down, but CRO is important from a user standpoint, and it's crucial as those visitors that are now coming to our websites, especially those that are centered around trying to grow our email list or trying to, optimize for those desired actions is now more important than ever because traffic's been cut down so much. So making sure that we're providing the best user experience for those people right now is crucial. So continuing with testing, continuing with A/B testing, and working on things you can do from a conversion standpoint. Although times have changed, that's important now more than ever to help remove those frictions, remove those distractions to try to get those desired actions completed better on our website. So yeah, all good stuff there. And again, more proactive approach as we move. So Paul, maybe back to you then. As we shift out of this first phase, right, of being this relevant resource in our destinations and more into a second phase of preparing for a rebound, right? What are some of the more proactive things that DMOs can be working on right now?
Yeah. So besides, planning for future campaigns, I think is important because, part of it is also, while we mentioned, losing half of organic traffic and all that, like we said, half the people are still there, which is impressive considering that, 0% of the travel is going on, which suggests to me that, people probably are still looking at, later in the year, where might we have a chance to go someplace, if nothing else,
Right.
even just aspirational browsing of content like this. So I think it's really important to, start creating that message that would inspire people to choose your destination. I mean, obviously we should be doing that all the time, but, tailoring it to the coronavirus situation is probably a good idea. I think probably, if any, it's hard to tell what the truth is, but my hypothesis would be, of the half people that aren't coming to the sites anymore, I bet a lot of them are the people who are sort of your quick in and out information browsing people who want to know, where's this business? Is it open? What time is this event or stuff?
Right.
Which are great people to be serving with our websites, but are not, it's not really the core job of a DMO to be a sort of quick guide like that. And, Google more and more takes that role from us anyway. The biggest impact a DMO can have is getting, rather than, showing people what time to be at the park for the fireworks show or whatever, it's rather getting people to decide to come spend some time in their particular destination. And I would suspect that the people that we have left are more those types of people anyway. So that part of the mission remains a big deal. And we absolutely think that, for the SEO side, planning to have some content ready to take advantage of those rankings already published when quarantines and stay-at-homes and so forth get lifted is probably a good idea. And of course, then with all these changes, everything being sort of not what we all expected a few weeks ago, it's important to the greatest extent possible to start preparing stakeholders, whether those be board members, managers, whoever. The 2020 KPIs are not going to be what we expected, certainly on the website. If you have a goal attached to sessions on your website, that's going to be tough. And if you ask me, that should be taken into account when people are evaluating your performance and everything. I think that's a pretty easy case to make, really. But it absolutely needs to be done. And obviously, anytime people are going to be looking at things that are bad, the more forewarning the better. You never want to surprise somebody with bad news. So we think it's a really good idea right now to go ahead and start modeling, maybe not modeling per se, although that'd be great, but at least, doing some basic forecasting on what your 2020 KPIs will look like as opposed to what they were expected to look like. And that's going to depend on how long all this lasts. Nobody really knows, but it's good to get a leg up on it and have people looking forward.
Yeah, and then making those changes from there, Paul, right, which is important on that side. So yeah, thanks for sharing. So yeah, looking at that, then I think moving into paid marketing and talking there, and we mentioned the future is important. And one thing that we are getting asked a lot is, does it make sense to pay for any type of traffic now or do any type of paid marketing if consumers aren't purchasing travel right now? And listen, for every DMO, they're going to have a different take on this. Right? Certainly an argument can be made and has been made for pausing brand awareness campaigns, international campaigns, all those types of things. And listen, in most cases, it's very, very prudent to do so. The last thing a DMO wants to do is appear tone deaf or opportunistic in a time like this. That's just not smart. So again, if you're erring on the side of keeping things going, and we have clients that are still continuing things because they're seeing good results, and we have clients that have stopped. And that's just the truth of it. But if you're going to err on the side of being conservative with your advertising now is probably best. As you can kind of store things away for a future date. So looking at some quick tips I wanted to make mention is, and Paul, you touched on this already, is keeping a close eye on search trends, right? Google Trends is a great place for that. If anything, to keep an eye on what travel related terms are looking like in Google Trends and how those things are changing, it's awesome. But also that if you have new content that you're building, to start using Google Trends to test different keyword ideas out that may inform your marketing efforts at a later date. So keeping a close eye of things on Google Trends is a great place to see what's working and what isn't working with everybody else that's out there. We touched on this a little bit already, but continuing to create meaningful content. That doesn't only hold true on the SEO side of the fence, but it's also good on the paid media side of the fence, right? For landing pages, things like that. Virginia.org has done some good stuff with some landing page content. Just saw some things coming out of Austin this morning, which look really awesome. So a lot of people are doing some really good stuff with creating meaningful content. So again, continuing to do that, whether it's on the paid side of the or side of the house, is important moving forward. Additionally, just like you guys are doing today on this webinar, which is great, is communicating with your agency partners and your vendors. That's what we're here for, because that people like SimpleView or other agencies or providers out there are talking to dozens and dozens and dozens of DMOs just like you every single day. It's a good resource to kind of get a temperature on what's going on, what are others doing, what's happening. So talking to your account services folks about those things, leverage us. We're not just here for the good times, but we're here for the times of crisis as well. So using us as a good resource for those things, frequently visiting blogs from the different vendors and things of that nature is really good. I know on a recent blog post, we also shared a good community resource on Facebook that helps with a lot of these things. So take a looking at that is something I think smart moving forward, because we're talking to so many different DMOs at any given time. Also then when you're creating that content, optimizing that content, I wanted to make mention of this again, because it takes a long time to get to the top of the search engine results pages, and it takes 2 seconds for those things to go away. So remembering that SEO is a long game. It's still your number one traffic source. Using maybe even some of your paid marketing efforts to test what works and resonates with an audience, so that you can start to build pages out that can rank organically in the long term, would be a smart strategy right now as well. If you are doing some paid media, where it makes sense, using paid search for some of your crisis communications is not a bad idea. A lot of you have a lot of good content out there and new content, and promoting it through social is a great place to do that as well. But also maybe carving out some of your paid search budget to take care of some of those things and get some traction with those pages would also be a good strategy. Mixing that in with some targeting and some bidding strategies would be a smart use of paid search if you are doing that right now. And then lastly, I think it's just staying ahead of the competition. One thing we're recommending clients right now, hey, if you're not running paid media, you'd be hoarding those dollars for the future. That's a good strategy. Bucketing this money or carving off and earmarking this money for later investment is very smart to do, right? So as I tell people, we're all hoarding supplies and toilet paper right now. You should be hoarding your marketing dollars as well. It's a good idea to be able to keep those out for a rainy day, because when things get turned back on again and things rebound, travel is going to move quickly. If you think about people being, already working from home in a very short period of time, those people are locked up, for just lack of better terms, in their houses. They're going to be looking to get out. And so making sure that, regional tourism will probably return first, but keeping an eye on those things so that when the time comes, you can flip that switch back on and get things going. So good stuff there. That's just some tips there on the paid marketing side. And then Sandy, now I want to get into you on email and social, because this is a really, really important thing for right now, because these are some of the best ways to really directly communicate with your audience, to directly get in front of your constituents and your stakeholders. And it holds a lot of weight for brand. So let's get into that a little bit. So pivoting into you, Sandy, email marketing is really, one of the best resources to reach an audience directly. And during a crisis situation like this, it can make so we've all experienced, the onslaughts of emails, which I mentioned earlier, from nearly every brand that we interact with, whether it's restaurants, Find at Once, or essential operations like pharmacies, doctors, and everything in between. So, Sandy, as we get into this, what kind of content should DMOs, really be focused on at the moment, at this very moment?
Yeah. Well, I think that now more than ever, you need to be thinking like your audience. Your audience is easily much more receptive and attentive now to online messaging than ever.
Mhm.
Everybody is sitting at home. Everybody is seeking out information, the latest information online. So this is a prime opportunity to start building trust in an audience. So the content, whatever medium it's in, needs to be informative, inspirational, relevant, relatable. You need to be that source for the community. So think of stories that you're sharing with your friends and your family. Those are the kinds of stories that you should be telling on your website, in your email campaigns, and in social media. So as you're being that community resource, if you're doing it the right way, you've got a great opportunity to gain more followers and visitors, because they can trust that you're this consistent source of content that they're looking for right now. And that can lead into having a more consistent, reliable audience in the future. So this is a great time to start building trust in the brand. Once we get on the other side of this pandemic, people are going to start traveling again. And if they've built the habit up of coming to you for that information, that's just going to continue, as soon as we can start traveling again. So we don't want to just, repeat what other resources are providing. We do want to direct people to, of course, those local health authorities that are going to give us the accurate information, but don't just repeat that information on the site. We want to expand it. The news outlets, they're telling people stay home. And clearly, that's what we want people to do. We don't need to just say stay home in our communication, but let's figure out ways that we can enrich that experience and at least provide some kind of comfort during, a really stressful time. So
there's some clients that, Sandy, that are really doing that. Yeah, I was gonna say there's some clients that are doing a pretty good job of that right now, even, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take an example of one of those. This is Visit Houston. This is how they're handling their COVID-19 content. And Jason, there we go. So they've created a section called Missing You, super cute, right? In this section, they're providing a sounding board for local businesses, and they're really showing a new way to experience Houston virtually. On the next example here, we're looking at restaurants that are featured that provide takeout service. So one note to mention here, for restaurants and actually for any information that you're providing at this time, it's so important to do your fact checking, because things are changing by the minute. We want to make sure that we're adding new information that, of course, is relevant and up to date, but we want to make sure that we're also removing that information that is not so relevant and maybe not so accurate anymore. Local businesses are going to be changing the way they do the game. Some of them, are going to be providing service for a period of time, and then that's going to go away. So we don't want to provide incorrect information. It's important that you're consistently doing your fact checking almost daily. Let's take a look at the second example that we have here for Visit Omaha. They're showing virtual tours. Like I mentioned before, there are tons of opportunities for virtual tours and activities. A lot of gyms are showing, their own personal trainers doing webinars, doing, virtual workouts. this is a great opportunity to harness some of that photo and video content and highlight those opportunities. And Omaha in this landing page has done a really great job with that.
Yeah, they have. And then Sandy, social is a good place as well. And I know you had some examples to share because it's another great way to communicate with an audience. So, let's talk about that a little bit. You had some good examples here that you wanted to share.
Yeah. So this one is from Visit San Diego. And, don't forget, there are gorgeous webcams everywhere. Almost everybody has a really great resource of webcams. It's a great time to start highlighting those. Visit San Diego is doing just that for the San Diego Zoo in their Instagram post here, reminding people that, they can come in and still check out the zoo without leaving their home. The second example that we have here is Visit Fort Lauderdale. And I thought this was a fantastic example. They went to Netflix and they found, a handful of films that feature Fort Lauderdale. Everybody's at home, everybody's watching Netflix. We might as well check out some movies that feature Fort Lauderdale. So, Rock of Ages, there's something about Mary, there's a whole list here. And so if you can't go physically visit Fort Lauderdale, you can experience it through a story on Netflix, which everybody's watching right now.
Yes.
And then Visit Omaha, I have an example here of how they've taken their visitor guide content and turned that into inspirational reading material. Everybody knows we can't go anywhere right now, but we can get inspired for when we are ready to do that. And so they are leading users to their virtual visitor center so people can start planning for the other side of this.
Yeah, good stuff there, Sandy. And, social media, powerful way to be able to communicate that message. And again, I love to see these DMOs creating some creative ways of sharing some of that content. We'll be doing a layover later this week, also where Katie will be back and we're talking about some creative ways that DMOs are doing some things as well. So love to see this kind of stuff. So thanks for sharing that. Now, social media, Sandy, email is also such an important medium right now. As it is really that direct line into a DMO's audience, right, from a communication standpoint. Looking at a lot of our clients, like even here seeing the stuff that, Colleen and Marissa are doing out of Greater Palm Springs, their team's always doing a good job with content.
Oh yeah, I love
so
this.
no surprise here. Yes, but maybe, how should DMOs pivot their email marketing programs right now?
Yeah, Greater Palm Springs is a really great example. They've taken the concept of what everybody's doing, which is, pausing for the moment, and highlighting that with a pause now, play later campaign. So they harness their email communication to let everybody know, hey, we get it, everybody's on pause. When you're ready to plan again, we'll be here for you. And that leads into a landing page that's providing resources for the community for things that they can do virtually. So it's a really great use of, a general newsletter communication list that's sending out a message that is relevant and important and not just obnoxious. So looking at some of the recommendations that we have on the email side, we want to pause and refine that messaging. One thing that you definitely don't want to do is just keep the status quo with your standard automated emails. You want to show that there's a real person on the other side of that message. And if you're sending out just your same static sales type emails, you're not taking the opportunity to show that you've got real communication going back and forth between you and your audience. So if you haven't already, be sure to pause the outdated emails and update them to an example like what we just saw with Greater Palm Springs. Tailor the language and the tone to the situation. Don't forget that people are paying attention even more so online today.
Yeah, good point.
Yep. And then use your email list sparingly. Send emails to your list when you have a concrete update or a real valuable piece of information to share. We're using email communication even more today than before, and we don't want to inundate someone's inbox with a lot of things that are just not relevant to them. So be sure to use that sparingly. And again, be that valuable resource. When it comes to specific updates on your destination, use that opportunity to drive people to your site. But once they get to your site, have that new content there available to them that is going to enrich and inspire the experience.
Yeah, and hygiene is more important than ever, right? So trying to cleanse those lists. We tell people this all the time. It's really important now, right?
Absolutely. Because you don't want to email someone who hasn't engaged with you in 4 or 5 years. This is not the time to start a re-engagement campaign. This is the time to really nurture those users that have been interacting with you. So make sure that those lists are clean. Make sure that you are creating segments that make sense and you're tailoring those communications to those segments. It's even more so important today than it was before. So take this time to completely remove those unengaged users from your list. And this is going to help your open rates as well. So it's an important practice, typically, but even now, we want to make sure that we're not being insensitive and, sending emails to people who just don't want them.
Yep. And then that common theme, right, Sandy, like plan for the future, right? Moving forward.
Absolutely. So, use this time to get to know the tools that you have. This is a great time for you to do some research into campaigns that you can create in the future. So, what are some more advanced marketing automation or drip campaigns that we can look into? What are better ways that we can support our marketing initiatives overall through the tools that we have? So take some time to get to learn the email platform that you're using or the marketing automation platform that you're using, and really get trained up and prepared for the massive campaign that you're going to run on the other side of this pandemic.
Yeah, good information there, Sandy, and I appreciate that. The tips are always great. Again, hopefully we got some, good content out there for everybody as it relates to the continuity and making a absolute case for continuing SEO services. To me, that's a no-brainer. Moving into paid marketing, right, and keeping an eye on that. If anything, hoarding dollars or putting dollars aside for later is a smart strategy right now because it's going to turn around quick. And then also some of your email marketing tips. This is really, really, really good stuff. Being creative with your social media, providing email marketing, building those programs now, because when we rebound, being able to flip that switch on right now is more important than ever. So I wanted to leave some time then, guys, for some questions, being mindful of everyone's time. So Sam, if you're there, do we have any questions? Or if you do have questions, please add those to the box so that Sam can get those over to us, as we want to make sure that we leave some time while you have these folks on the phone during this webinar to be able to answer these for you. So Sam, have you got anything?
Yeah, so far I've gotten one, and this one is definitely a good one for Paul.
Good.
Maureen asked, will the addition of pages that are specific to COVID-19 that are going to be ideally temporary, how will these pages affect my overall SEO?
Good question.
It's a good question. If we have permanent COVID-19 resources, that will be a problem. Yeah, no, I think they can actually help your overall SEO insofar as if you do a good job and make something that's useful to your community or really any audience, but probably your community is the most available one. If you can get links and social media citations out of those, then that can improve your authority for earning rankings in the long term for all of your content. Even when those pages come or are no longer relevant, I would probably leave the URLs up for that ongoing SEO benefit. Once they're dead, then they're not helping your content rank. And while you could redirect them, we don't recommend redirecting content to URLs that aren't basically about the same topic. So really the best thing to do once the crisis has passed would be to leave them up and, maybe just change the content to a quick note like, thank God that's over. And just keep them sort of up without really being linked on your site, and that should give you an ongoing SEO boost. Again, depending on how popular and well shared the content was.
Yep.
Awesome.
Good advice,
Thanks,
Paul. Great question.
Any
other questions, Sam?
Still the only question that we've gotten so far. So if anyone else has anything that they can think of, oh, here is the second one.
Here we go.
Let's see. So I guess this could probably go to Sandy and Paul both. David is asking if we have any recommendations on imagery for those pages.
Yeah, user-generated content. I think that's going to be your best bet. I mean, obviously right now we're not sending photographers out. We're not doing any shoots right now. And so, turning to social media and finding those meaningful images. There's a lot of images right now of, people that are practicing social distancing, and they're doing fun things with their families in the house. I don't know if you guys ever get on TikTok, but there's all kinds of craziness going on TikTok with families just, you know, finding ways to pass the time. So I would say that definitely turning to your aggregators, making sure that you're getting all of that user-generated content that's relevant to your destination is a great place to go for imagery.
Yeah, and Sandy, I'll add to that too, that, you know, really it's being mindful of the tone of the imagery. I think that's important, right? If you're writing a piece about, to Sandy's point, if you're writing a piece that's more fun about what things that people can do at home, that's going to have a different approach than if you're providing a list of, COVID resources in your area, where you want to probably be a little bit more neutral and a little bit more conservative with the imagery. I think it really depends on the type of content that's out there. So just being mindful of the tone, I think, is something that's important in this day and age. Good stuff.
Awesome.
Good question.
Okay,
Anything
so
else,
here's
Sammy?
another one. Yeah, one
Okay,
just came
great.
from Jenna. What do you recommend in terms of sharing info for community versus hospitality partners versus visitors? Do you have it all on the same page, or do you have different pages per type of web user? And then also, where do DMOs stand in between agencies, state government, local government, federal government associations, etc.?
Okay. Yeah, I'll leave that to you guys to answer on both those questions. So maybe Paul start.
I mean, yeah, as far as different pages, I think it's the usual rule of thumb. If it's if you've got more than a couple hundred words for each audience, then separate pages probably make sense. Just to make sure that people can, for one thing, if people are coming in through search for that kind of information, having separate URLs will be a little bit easier for the search engines to give them the right answer for. If it's just a couple sentences, for each audience, then you can throw them all in one page. It's no big deal. What was the other part of that question? Sorry, there was something else I was going to say about it.
Yeah, just how you recommend sharing that info, for the different groups, whether it's community, hospitality partners, or visitors, and then having it all on the same page or different pages per type of web user.
Yeah, and then you were saying, where do you stand relative to the other organizations in the community?
Yeah.
Obviously, we are not disease experts and shouldn't pretend to be, but insofar as DMOs are, fairly visible sites with good traffic, who do have at least a semi-official standing in their communities, republishing that information is a good idea. And I think also, aggregating is probably the actual useful service that a DMO can provide. Taking all that information from disparate sources and putting it in one place for your community or your people who may be visiting your area. That would be, I think, the probably ideal use of those resources. And it just gives that information one more outlet to get out into the world, and you have some benefit in the long run from it as well.
Yeah, good advice there, Paul.
Awesome. So far, that is it for questions, unless anyone has any others they want to submit really fast.
Yeah, let's submit one more real quick, and if we got somebody else, take one more. Is that it, Sammy?
Don't forget to, if you think of something at the end, Nicole said you can email, I think it's marketing@simpleviewinc.com with other questions, and we can follow up afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, again, I think knowing the situation is going to continue to be quite dramatic for travel for a while, it's in all of our best interest to continue with services, I think, like SEO, like CRO, content. Those things are all important. We just have to shift our strategies today. And I think it goes without saying that the crisis is going to end at some time. So encouraging all of you to be that valuable resource for your destinations, and many of you have done a phenomenal job of doing that during this situation, is really good. Desire to travel will certainly return, and perhaps even stronger than it ever has been before. Since most digital marketing services like SEO are a long game, what we can do now is continue to focus on optimizing for that time in the future, improving overall quality of all of our websites, adjusting content strategies for the long term, and also communicating regularly with our audiences to ensure we are prepared for that future. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to my team today for helping out with this webinar. Again, we are here in any way, shape, or form. So whether you reach out directly to us or to account services, please do so. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you soon, and take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.